FearScape Media Network, exploring the unknown, one podcast at a time.
Hey everybody, Stefan here. This episode is sponsored by the great folks over at Box Mountain. Box Mountain is a subscription box service that has my favorite sub box yet, the Cryptid Crate. You see, Josh got one of these for his birthday, and I was super jealous because it was packed full of merchandise pertaining to cryptids. The box he received first was all about the Flatwoods Monster, which of course is one of our favorites, and it had a t-shirt, a book, a patch, mug, and some awesome stickers. So I checked out the price to get one for myself, and let me tell you, it is well worth the value. These make excellent gifts for yourself or even friends that are cryptid lovers as well. Now, if you use the coupon code FearScape, you will get 25% off the first month for any new subscription or 10% off individual purchases. So go ahead and head on over to fearscapepodcast.com/cryptidcrate now and get yourself one today.
Thank you for tuning in to FearScape Paranormal Podcast. We are on a journey to understand and to discover the phenomena that seems to exist all around the globe. We invite you to join us on this journey into the unknown.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another high-flying, we keep trying, lovey-dovey episode of FearScape Paranormal Podcast here on the FearScape Media Network. I am the hostess with the mostest, Stefan Gearhart, and I am joined, as always, by my other host, Josh Rutledge. I'm not giving you anything in the beginning
props,
this time.
No props.
You are just a simple co-host.
I'm just a simple guy doing simple things, with my simple mind. That's all it is.
Exactly. Yep. I'm glad I didn't even have to say it.
Yeah.
Good night, everybody.
Just that's the end of it. Signing off. Yeah.
And we're off. I just wanted to share this with you today. I think I've mentioned it on here a few times that I work at a place where I have to make phone calls all day. And I spoke to this lady today, and she was like, "Can you call me back in 30 minutes? I'm watching the evening news." So I called her back and I was like, "And I'm looking for Gloria. This is Tom Brokaw here from insert my job name." And she laughed her butt off. And my boss was like, "You did not." I said, "Hey, I got it, didn't I?"
Read the audience. That's the important part.
So that's the important part. So she appreciated it. She was an older lady, so she knew who Tom Brokaw was.
Yeah, well, Judge Wapner's no longer on the air.
Bam, Wapner's on. Bam. Anyways, we got a really fun show for you tonight. Really cool show. We have a really great guest we're going to be getting spooky with. We're looking at author, podcaster, producer, and guest on a number of different TV shows, including Hangar 1 on history, as well as UFO Coverups on history. I could name a million of them. He is very wise when it comes to UFOs and UAPs and so much stuff, man. We've got Jason McClellan on the show tonight, and I'm so pumped because we got another Phoenix dude coming on tonight.
I know it's gonna be.
We're gonna be posting his address for everyone. No, I'm just joking.
Well, it'll be interesting. I'm wondering if he was out there during Phoenix Lights.
Oh yeah, I'd love to ask him about that. I also want to ask him about something that I'm about to bring up in Creepy Ketchup. So I got some stuff tonight, but we're not going to do that yet. We're not going to do that yet. So
you're getting ahead of yourself.
I'm getting ahead of myself. That's happened to me all day today. So before we get into our interview with Jason, we're going to do our normal segments of the week. So let's start with Psychic Word of the Week.
And now, the Psychic Word of the Week.
All right, psychic word of the week comes from the Encyclopedic Psychic Dictionary by Junji Bletzer, PhD. Rest in peace, honey bear. I miss you, and I've never met you. So anyways, I flipped through a page, and this would be 463, and the phrase that I see is personal haunting. Personal haunting for 300, Alex. Personal haunting. So what it says here is the hovering of an earthbound entity close to an earthling, encouraging him or her to increase an unwanted habit. Earthbound entity uses his or her own energy as a mental psychism, attaches periodically to an earthling who is a negative thinker, materialistic person, or who shares the same frailties of the discarnate being, impresses in the earthling's mind to keep up the activity he or she desires, making it harder for the earthling to relinquish the habit. Discarnate being receives pleasure by memory. Do not confuse this with environmental haunting, in which the earthbound entity uses energy in environment and the results are physical psychism. Very interesting. I wish we had this last week within our Gorga, because man, that sounds exactly what he was talking about with the demons attacking certain emotions and stuff, demons of lust, demons of depression, etc.
Well, and it also goes along with some things that we've talked about other times, and things about, do these entities kind of attract or feed off of different emotional states and things like that. So, I mean, this right here says that they do. So.
So, I mean, it very much insinuated to me addiction and things like that, drug addiction and stuff. So that's very interesting. I wish we could reach out to June. I wish she was still alive. I would love to talk to her about certain ones and be like, can you delve into this a little bit more? I wish we had her on speed dial.
Well, and it's really interesting that you talk about drug addiction and things. And I mean, is that the reason why addicts can't really kick it, because there's some? Well, I mean,
there's that. I mean, what's another term for liquor? Spirits. And you've heard the term giving up the ghost, right? So, those are, I don't see that as coincidence.
Yeah, exactly.
So personal haunting. Thank you, Junji Bletzer. As always, she is spot on. She just missed it by a week.
We don't know. It might come up tonight.
It might. Anyways, let's go ahead and move to our next segment, which is, we haven't had this in a week or two, but the Mandela effect.
Did you say mandala?
No, I said Mandela. The Mandela effect.
All right, so we are going over the Mandela effect again, which, if those of you don't recall, this is where people have memories. Certain people have memories of things being a certain way, usually happening in pop culture or history or things like that. And it is no longer that way. And there's a large group of folks that remember it that way, while others remember it as it is. So, in fact, this happened to me today. Kind of, I was going to say, well, it's not really creepy catch up, but it's like I was driving, and I drive same way every day, have done now for 6 months. And there was a gas station. It was an older one, so it ain't new, on the corner of one of the stoplights where I'm at. And I was like, has that always been there? And trust me, I'm ADHD. I look at everything. I am not a safe driver. And so it's like, I'm looking at everything, but I legit was like, has that really always been there? And I was laughing because I was like, is this the Mandela effect?
Well, I have that kind of stuff happen. Like was driving to my parents' house one day. It's been a couple of years ago. I was driving to my parents' house one day, which I used to live right around the corner from. And I was like, is that cell tower always been there? But I mean, cell towers could go up quickly, but it had been only a couple of days since I was there before, and I didn't ever notice it before. So it was just,
interesting. But yeah, so for the Mandela effect, what I've got, the first one that I've got here is actually one that legit surprises me, and I have went and double checked. This one comes from Forrest Gump. Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get. That's not actually the line. much like hearing, I'm going to save that for the second one, actually. But yeah, life is like a box of chocolates. The line played by Tom Hanks, he actually said, if you listen closely, he says, life was like a box of chocolates, not life is. And that's very different. And so it makes sense, though, if you go back, because he says, Mama always said life was like a box of chocolates. Right. So that makes a little more sense because he's already referencing the past, which means Mama was representing, the past. But yeah, I looked it up. It legit says life was like a box of chocolates, not life is.
Well, and is that really a Mandela effect, or is that just people not paying attention to a movie?
I mean, isn't that anything that we've talked about? I mean, we talked about the Kit Kat last time, and it's like whether or not there's a hyphen in there. Is that?
But no, I remember the Monopoly man having a freaking monocle. I remember that being the case. There was something that I saw. The Monopoly man had a freaking monocle. Okay. He has had a monocle before.
Right. So I'm gonna
your use.
So two more. I'm going to go with TV movie things here. These kind of go back to me things because, again, these are messed up things. They're either misquoted or never quoted as all. The one I'm going to bring up is Star Trek. Many people, in fact, there's T-shirts and everything that shows Captain Kirk saying, "Beam me up, Scotty." He, in fact, never said, "Beam me up, Scotty" in Star Trek. It never happened.
Yeah, he probably said Mr. Scott.
Yeah, he said different things. He would say teleport us or beam us up or things, but the phrase that everyone says, "Beam me up, Scotty," never happened.
I wonder if that is a misuse because of Spaceballs. In Spaceballs, they say, "Beam me up, Snotty." And so I wonder if that's a misappropriation to Star Trek as the origination.
That the whole "Beam me up, Scotty" thing was out long before that, out long before that.
I don't know. I mean, maybe, and I'm just going to go out on a limb here. Maybe it was used in like some sort of a toy, like a packaging for a toy.
Sure. Or even it could have been in some sort of advertising or marketing,
right?
Where it was just printed out, or, the announcer, "Get ready for Star Trek, beam me up, Scotty, at 7:00 on Thursdays," right?
Yeah.
Any of those things are possible.
So
I don't know.
Yeah. But I mean, I find it hard to believe that someone came out of nowhere with that. I mean, it probably was used somewhere that led somebody to use that. I'm just saying, it's just, especially when you think about like print and how many people pay so much for letters and words back in the day. I mean, you're going to print "Beam me up, Scotty" as opposed to, "Transport us, Mr. Scott."
Right. Yeah. I'm trying to look here because now I'm super interested in this. But yeah, it says right here, though it has become irrevocably associated with the series and films, the exact phrase was never actually spoken in any Star Trek episode or film. Despite this, the quote has become a phrase of its own over time. It's even become a slang for drugs, all kinds of different stuff. Let me see.
Become here. A sexual euphemism. So.
Right. Like it says, the misquotation's influence even led to James Doohan, the actor who played Scotty, to be misrepresented in his own obituary, where it says the character who responded to the command "Beam me up, Scotty," despite never having responded to that command. And Doohan even made that the name of his autobiography in 1996.
That's what I'm saying. It had to have come somewhere.
I can't find anything that says where it came from. I mean, there's a number of different phrasings, animated episode. He says, "Beam us up, Scotty." There's time where he just says, "Beam me up." In the movies, it says, "Scotty, beam me up. Beam them out of there, Scotty." So, I mean...
Yeah, somebody just put it together. I mean, come on. That's not really a Mandela effect, I don't think.
I don't know. But people swear that they remember it being said. And people are like, "I swear I had a VHS copy where it was said and everything." So here's another one. Another quick one. This one comes from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. The famous quote, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the most beautiful of them all," or whatever it is,
Fairest.
Is actually not the quote. the quote is actually magic mirror on the wall.
Right.
It is not mirror, mirror. And I don't know where this started, but I mean, to the point that even that Julia Roberts version of Snow White was called Mirror, Mirror.
Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, this is where I'm on to come down on the side that I always remember it as Magic Mirror.
Oh, really? Oh, man. Yeah. I mean, me and my sister, we would, when we were little kids and we would play Disney, like we'd pretend to be Disney characters and stuff. I would always be the Magic Mirror and she'd always be like, mirror, mirror on the wall. I mean, even if I'm doing improv and I like do that, I still say mirror, mirror. And in fact, later on in Disney and like those Halloween Disney cuts and stuff, remember where the mirror like hosted the Halloween special and all that stuff? Disney even kind of changed it to mirror, mirror later on. So very, very interesting. So, but yeah, there are many, many people that swear that, they remember it that way. So I don't know. I don't know. And that's the interesting part, right? Yeah, and I think some of it too, I believe in the original English translation of the Brothers Grimm, they do say mirror, mirror on the wall. So maybe that also might be where it came from. I don't know. I don't have anything in front of me. So, but anyways, that's Mandela Effect. You're welcome. I'm glad I've ruined everyone's day. So, all right. So let's move on. We've got some, I think it's hilarious, but let's get into some real quick spooky news here. All right, Josh, you're going to be doing spooky news as you found this story this week. So what's the story here? What do we got?
Yeah, so this is being dubbed the Lunar New Deal. And Representative Louis Gohmert of Texas suggested at a congressional hearing that climate change could be combated by altering the orbit of the moon, and asked the U.S. Forest Service and the Bureau of Land Management if that's something they could take care of for him.
Yeah, we're going to send Superman up there. He's going to push the moon away. I mean, yeah, you're right. It will cool down America when you shift it and it screws up the tides in the United States. It's completely covered in water. It's going to cool it down.
So here's a direct quote. I was informed by the immediate past director of NASA that they found that the moon's orbit is changing slightly, and so is the Earth's orbit around the sun. We know there's been significant solar flare activity. And so is there anything that the National Forest Service or the Bureau of Land Management can do to change the course of the moon's orbit or the Earth's orbit around the sun? Obviously, that would have profound effects on our climate. Understatement of the century right there.
Dude, so here we go. Here's people that are anti-climate change in terms of humans doing it, trying to say, hey, no, we understand the climate is changing, but it's not our fault. Yeah. It's essentially what this man is saying.
So it says here that Representative Ted Lieu, and I'm probably saying his last name incorrectly, Lieu, but that's what I'm going to go with, went to Twitter on Wednesday suggesting that Marvel's comics Captain Marvel could handle the job, saying she can alter planetary orbits with her superpowers. I'm going to work on a bipartisan resolution asking for her help.
This is where we are in American politics, people. This is a Democrat quoted that, and the Republican did the other thing. We're doomed.
So what's interesting here is that the person who they're referencing, the former NASA administrator, was an individual known by the last name of Bridenstine. And he actually went on to say that he did take the stance initially that the Earth's orbit or whatever could have been causing climate change. But after actually being appointed by President Trump to his position, he then sat down with climatologists, and this is a quote from him: understanding that greenhouse gas emissions are overwhelmingly responsible for the observed warming allows the scientific community to inform policymakers about how decisions regarding energy sources and land management will determine the amount of future climate change. So he pretty much backed his position up that no, it's really related to the amount of crap we're dumping into the atmosphere. So.
All right. Okay.
And just, this is not necessarily, it's related to this article, but it's not mentioned here. But the moon does move away from the Earth about 1 inch a year. But it's been doing that for millions of years.
Santosh and I were talking about that. We were talking about once that, say if like magic is real and the moon is one of those things that the ancients believed kind of magic came from and things like that, or even like these stories of werewolves and things that were affected by the moon. Well, the moon did used to be much closer, and what if its effect was much stronger, right? If there was a magical effect to it.
There's a lot of studies that have been done that like people in psychiatric wards go, for lack of a better term, berserk on full moon evenings.
Oh yeah, my cats go nuts. My dog doesn't, but he's just chillaxed. But my cats do go nuts on full moon. They just go crazy.
My kids do. When we pretty much watch the cycles of the moon to know when the next full moon is approaching, because we know that my kids are going to be extra irritable and extra cranky and everything else. So,
wait till they get old enough and they go through their changes and they get in sync with your wife.
Well, and wait till that all happens on a full moon, right?
Exactly. You are going to come stay with me.
I'm going to go live in a hotel for a week.
So. No, you can come stay with me. I have a guest bedroom for that reason. It says Josh's Escape.
So anyway, I feel like this needs to trend on Twitter, hashtag lunar new deal.
Yeah, it probably already has. We just haven't checked. So, but yeah, thank you for that, Josh. And we're going to hurry up and get through some our last phase so we can get to Jason McClellan. So let's hurry up and get through some creepy catch up.
Creepy catch up. Creepy catch up. Creepy catch up. Creepy catch up. Y'all, it's creepy.
All right, creepy catch up. I've got a few things, so I'm going to let you go first. I know you said you had something small in your pants.
No. Real men make
nickels and dimes.
Real men make twins. That's all I got to say. So last night, the whole house, we're like dead asleep. Cats are on the bed. They're sleeping. All of a sudden, this loud crash comes from somewhere in the house. So my wife jumps up to run out and check on things. I wear a CPAP mask, so I jump up, but I really can't go very far. So I'm struggling to get my mask off really quick and to see what's going on. So I go around and check everything, and we can't find anything that's out of place. I went down to the basement and checked closets and everything. We can't find anything that's out of place. So my wife starts freaking out a little bit because, we do the podcast and I always talking about spooky stuff and seeing things in the house and so on and so forth. So she starts freaking out a little bit and she's like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to go back to sleep. So I had a thought and I was like, let me go check the bathroom, because in the bathroom that my kids primarily use, we've got a shelf that suction cups to the wall. Well, it had fallen off at 3 o'clock in the morning. So that's what the noise was.
Still could have been something pushing.
Still could have been pushing something. Yeah. But so it's just, since, I came back and I told her, it was a suction cup thing. It fell off, and I had to go tell both my kids it was a suction cup thing so they wouldn't freak out and not be able to sleep that night. But yeah, it was just funny that, she was starting to freak out about the potentiality of something in the house doing things. So,
well, I find it funny because, you're the sensitive one now. So, the ghost or alien or whatever it was knocked that down because they knew you'd go running so that they could go stare at your wife.
Well, no, she got up and looked too.
Oh, okay. Never mind then. I'm just kidding.
No, but she doesn't like dark rooms, so she won't go into a dark room and all the lights are off. So, she pretty much makes sure the kids are okay in the hallway, but then I was left to defend, the family.
I mean, who really likes the dark room? I mean, if you love a dark room, I want to talk to you a minute.
Cats like dark rooms.
Well, that's because they can see. That's different. I mean, you're like, I love this dark room because I got these night vision goggles on. They're fantastic.
Well, most dark rooms aren't really completely dark. I have been in some completely dark rooms.
Yeah, my college, that apartment that I lived at where you came to visit me, my bedroom was completely dark, and I could not wake up to save my life because we had no windows in the bedroom. Wake up, man.
The only completely dark space that I've ever been in that I was scared shitless was the Point Pleasant domes, the TNT domes.
Yeah, there were a few times, man, especially when somebody was doing Estes, and you're just sitting there and you can't talk, and you can't talk.
You're just like you're trapped in a dome.
Because if you even make the slightest noise, it was like cuckoo. So it's like you couldn't do anything, and you can't look over at the other person because you can't see anything.
Can't see anything.
That freaking heat vision camera.
Yep.
Oh, anyways, all right. So what? I got a few things. So,
okay.
First of all, so this is just odd. I'm still a little weirded out by it, but I was driving to work this morning, and there was this section of the highway that I was on. Traffic was surprisingly really light this morning, and there was a good 5 minutes where I didn't see any other car. And this is during that point where I didn't see any car. I mean, on the other side of the highway I did, but not on mine. Right. And I'm driving, dude, and all of a sudden I see this giant, what to me looks like an ice ball, fall out of the sky. I don't see it from way up. I see it as it's kind of like falling. It's adjacent to me to the right and just shatters on the highway. And I look up, not a cloud in the sky. There's no other cars. And by the way, it could have been glass. I don't know. But the way it broke, it looked like ice to me. But yeah, dude, I still don't know where it came from. The only thing I can think of, is that there was one of those highway walls there where there's a residential area behind it. Maybe some kid chucked an ice ball over the wall. That's the only thing that I can think of. There was no overpass. Nothing. It's just all of a sudden I'm like, what the fuck is that? And I'm like, oh God, thank God it didn't go in front of me. It was to the right of me. Just weird. Arizona's so weird. It's 110 degrees at 7 a.m. while I'm driving, and here's an ice ball. Yeah.
Well, you know what? But you know that a lot of Keel's writings talks about things just randomly falling from the sky.
Maybe it was like that blue ice where it was just shit falling from a plane.
Yeah.
I don't know. So it was just spooky, weird. Anyways, the other thing, so this has been all over local news here. But the other night I was walking the other day, it was during the day, I was walking Kenobi, and I look up and I see what looks like a teardrop in the sky, an upside down teardrop. Okay, almost like what you would think a hot air balloon would look like, but we have a hot air balloon place over by here, so I know what they look like, and they do not go up that high. If you look at how big this was, I mean, this was the size of a teardrop, and I was like, what the shit? And of course, I didn't bring my phone, no surprise, and all this stuff. And I'm watching this just move across the sky, and I'm like, what the heck? And it's going faster than a hot air balloon would go anyways. And it's pointed at the bottom, not like a basket sitting under there. And I'm like, what the hell, man? And I was like, man, I can't wait to tell Josh. This is going to be crazy, man. Okay, I'm saving it for creepy ketchup, y'all. Creepy ketchup, y'all. Creepy. And then my dad's like, did you see that weather balloon in the sky? Because my dad's always looking up Phoenix news now that his kids all live here. There apparently was a recycling, a car recycling area that set on fire, and apparently the flame was so high they could see it from space, and they could see it from 19 miles away, and none of us even knew about it. My dad's like, did you guys see the fire? Oh my God, it's all over national news. We're like, what fire? Because it was on the west side of town. People don't understand that Phoenix is 500 square miles. It's massive. But anyway, so here's this news article. It was legit, and I swear to you on this one, it was legit a weather balloon. So 100% legit. And I'm even yeah, it was a weather balloon. Looking at all the pictures and everything, you can see it was definitely a weather balloon.
Well, that's what when you first sent your pictures in the chat, I mean, it looked like an upside down plastic bag. So
right, yeah,
like a grocery bag or something.
So, but that explains like why it was moving quicker than a hot air balloon and things like that. So yeah, but it was all over the news here. People were talking about it at work and everything like that. And and of course, I'm the paranormal guy at work, so everybody's sending me like, "Did you see the UFO the other night?" And I'm like, "Sorry to burst your bubble, guys, but this was actually a weather balloon." They're like, "Yeah, they always say that." I'm like, "No, this time it legit was."
Well, so one thing though that's really interesting, and I think a good thing, that is this event. A lot of people were talking about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the national coverage and everything of all the UFO stuff is really waking people up.
Or this is, excuse me, this is the government sending it out to be like, see, y'all, it's a weather balloon.
Well,
we told you this whole time it's a weather balloon. Yeah. Here it is. So,
well, and that's because we haven't really talked about it in a minute, but the report that's coming out soon, supposedly the Times got a hold of it early, and basically it's doesn't really contain anything, which I think we talked about it probably was going to be the case, but
it just doesn't contain information about extraterrestrials. But we've never been 100% on the ET side anyways. But even then, here's this stuff that's way beyond, and they even admit that in the New York Times, it's way beyond anything that we have capability for. So where did it come from? It had to come from somewhere. So maybe dimensional. I mean, we've talked about that quite a bit. Yeah. Anyways, we'll save that for when the official report comes out. Right. So the last thing I wanted to talk about was, so you remember a few weeks ago when I told you the story at work about how I saw the old man ghost in the conference room?
Yep.
Well, that has officially gone around my work. That got sent as a spread like wildfire around my work, and so now everybody's telling me their own stories of incidences they've had at the place of my work. People are like, I was sitting there and a cold chill run up against my leg, and I was like, you sure that's not the air conditioning vent that's right there by your desk? So I'm like over here like debunking shit too. But yeah, other than that, though, I mean, people have seen other entities, and I've actually had one or two people say they saw an old man in that room as well. In fact, had a guy today that I work with who mentioned that he saw it today, asked me what he was wearing so that he could kind of see if it was the same thing that he saw, where he's standing, and verified that it was. So some things like that. So yeah, it's been getting around, and people have been coming to me with their little incidences of things like that and asking me what I think. So that's kind of cool.
What you need to do is ask management if you can set up a camera, a night vision camera in that room, and see if you catch anything.
Right, or even do a ghost hunt over the night.
Yeah,
that'd be fun. But anyways, yeah. So that's my creepy catch up. Hadn't had any in a while, and then boom, 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 boom.
Well, it's funny because last week I had some and you didn't, and then so yeah.
Yep. But anyways, yeah, so that's creepy catch up. So we're going to go ahead and take a very quick break here so we can get a refresher here before we get speaking with Jason McClellan. So please stick around. It'll be just a moment. FearScape Media Network is your new home for everything weird and enlightening. Check out podcasts and YouTube shows covering content from discussions on horror films to the paranormal to meditation. Find out more at fearscapemedia.com.
From FearScape Media, Peer Beyond the Veil is coming back for a new season this March. We're talking government-sponsored mind control, walking on the edge with DMT, wild occultism and deep parapsychology, along with our signature blend of extraterrestrialism, supernaturalism, and cryptid chasing. Bringing you a brand new roster of fascinating guests, each with their own stories and theories on the wild and the wonderful. Peer Beyond the Veil. Find us wherever there's darkness.
All right, and thank you guys so much for sticking around after the break. As promised, we have the pilot of his own UFO himself, Jason McClellan, here with us. Jason, thank you so much. You do everything, man. Author, podcaster, producer, TV personality. I mean, thank you so much for coming on FearScape, man.
Quadruple threat.
I am excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me, guys.
Oh, yeah. Super pumped, man. We are super pumped, too. We've been talking about it like all week. We're like, Jason's coming on, man. What are we going to talk about? And you're like,
we're going to get into trouble.
We don't plan it. I don't know.
So, yeah.
You never know what's going to happen. You can't plan. You can't plan.
You don't.
I do improv on the as my other thing, and planning scares me.
The only thing we plan is just to have people on for the conversations, but yeah, that's about it.
This is true.
So for those who maybe not familiar with you, if you want to just take a little bit, and what's a elevator speech for who is Jason McClellan?
Jason McClellan is weird.
Amen.
I mean, that's what I tell people.
Spectacular.
Yeah. No, I'm a strange guy, and I like strange things. I'm a curious individual who considers myself an explorer of the strange. I've worked professionally as a UFO researcher and journalist. Did that for about 8 years, and I'm one of the few people in the world who can say that, because, you know, for most people, UFOs is a hobby, and, you know, some people make their money doing it, but, you know, they do it here and there, or do Patreon campaigns or things like that. For me, I was actually paid a salary, full benefits, everything, by somebody to help start a UFO company, and did that for you know, almost 7 years, I guess.
Was it Adamantium Holdings? Just curious.
No. Well, I wouldn't be able to tell you, but
Yeah,
G&G.
but I mean, UFOs. That's primarily what I've latched my saddle to, and continued doing that, going on almost 15 years now. You know, I wrote a book. I'm writing another book. TV shows, all sorts of UFO craziness, and I love it.
And that's why we love you. But you remind me, too, because, you know, we had Ralph Blumenthal on a few weeks ago, New York Times journalist, who fell into UFO stuff because of John Mack and things like that.
Right.
And so it's interesting. Here's a guy that spent his lifetime as a non-believer who was telling us, he's like, I'm not a believer anymore, but I'm telling you, I believe these things.
That's funny.
Very interesting. So I love having someone who, well, I guess that I'm assuming here, but, you know, were you into this stuff before you got into the journalism aspect?
Being paid to do it.
Right. Or was that what spawned you to go, oh, shit, might be real?
It really is. I mean, I describe it as UFOs landing in my lap, because they really did. I mean, I had an interest growing up, like many people do. And you know, I grew up in Arizona, in the outskirts of Phoenix, remote desert location. You see the sky, great sky viewing. I love it. Obviously, I was here for the Phoenix Lights.
We were going to ask.
Yep. We can talk about that later. But I mean, I was a sci-fi kid. I grew up loving sci-fi movies and television shows. Star Trek Next Generation was my show. So I had that interest. I always had that interest. And like I said, growing up where I had a great view of the night sky, I would spend a lot of time staring up the sky, wondering, you know, about life out there and all that. I would see strange things in the sky because I camped a lot. But it was just that sort of casual interest that I think everybody has. But it wasn't until I was hired by an individual specifically for the purpose of helping him start a UFO company, and then we got the company rolling, that I dove down that rabbit hole, because I had to get up to speed. I was being paid to do this. I needed to be able to converse intelligently about this, and it was my job to research, write about it, and to interact with all the leading researchers in the field. I mean, because part of that company, we ran the largest UFO conference in the world. So, you know, we had open communication with these researchers all the time. We had them, invited them as speakers. So I had a lot of interaction with these people over the years. And, you know, most of the leading researchers in the UFO field I consider friends today.
Yeah.
Well, so, you know, I would imagine that in that capacity, you probably spend a lot of time looking at more factual information, what can be proven as opposed to what I would specify as like theoretical information as to what the ideas might be. How do you kind of come down? Do you come down personally on one side or the other, more of I'm a facts first, or it's okay to think about what could be?
I'm very scientifically minded, and I've been referred to as Scully many times, but
nothing wrong with that. You look beautiful.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm a very scientifically minded person, so I do enjoy looking at things from that perspective. But also, I'm a journalist, and I approach things journalistically, and I think that's how responsible journalists and researchers need to approach UFOs. Mm-hmm. They need to be approached journalistically. They need to be viewed with an open mind. And with UFOs, it's hard to follow the evidence because evidence is hard to come by when it comes to UFOs. A lot of UFO evidence, rests on witness testimony. Witness testimony is great. It's great with UFOs. It's fun to listen to. It's fun to read. But at the end of the day, it's still just somebody saying that something happened to them, or somebody describing it. When you talk to attorneys, courts of law, people like to blow this out of proportion and say, oh, you can convict somebody based on eyewitness testimony. And yeah, kind of. But most attorneys, most judges know that eyewitness testimony is garbage. It really is, because we're all fallible. Memory is terrible. You can have 3 people witness a car accident and you'll get 3 different explanations or descriptions of what happened, what color the car was, all these details. Our memories are not perfect, and we all see things through different eyes. Yeah. So you have to keep that stuff in mind. I do think witness testimony is incredibly valuable when it comes to UFOs, but you have to keep in mind that's all it is. It's supporting evidence, but that's part of what makes UFOs so frustrating. And I always try to remind people that and bring them to reality. UFOs are frustrating. If you're not ready to be frustrating and prepared to never get an answer, you probably shouldn't be into UFOs. So
we talk about quite a bit that I think a lot of people that have experiences of their own, that experience is really meant for them. Granted, you can share it with anybody who wants to listen, but it's probably not going to convince that person one way or the other. Yeah. And the only thing that's going to convince them one way or the other is when they have their own experience. Mm-hmm. So any experience sharing that occurs is really just to let other people know that it's okay that you have these experiences. You're not alone.
Absolutely.
Well, and it's also like what people want to believe. It's like, you had mentioned it, but it's like I listen to a lot of true crime, and my God, how many false convictions have there been? Things like that, like the Memphis 3, for example. There was no physical evidence at all, and yet they all got convicted of murder. But there are groups, I go to a lot of these different Facebook groups to read what people say and all this stuff, and they're maybe, but these people said this and they said that. Yet if you were to say these people said they saw a flying saucer in the sky, they'd be like, oh, well, that's malarkey. It's amazing what people will decide what they believe what others say, right?
That's a big thing with UFOs. You have to really be careful not to fall in that trap and blindly follow things that fit your desired outcome or your personal belief. And you have to be open to change what you believe. That's the thing with taking witness testimony, taking any sort of evidence there is with any particular UFO case, and you add that to your pile of evidence that you've accumulated over the years, and you weigh it. You decide whether you're going to add that to your personal pile of evidence and let that affect your beliefs, or you're going to discard it and move on. But you have to be able to be fluid with something like UFOs and your belief in UFOs, because evidence that comes down the road, you have to be able to weigh that realistically and openly with an open mind to if your aim is the truth, if you're genuinely interested in finding out what something really is, that's what you have to do. If you're just trying to make things fit to what you believe, well, that's a problem you have to deal with.
Right. Well, and I would say that where we are today, I think, or probably in the last 10 years or so, and especially in the last 3 years, that it's no longer a question of do you believe in UFOs? It's a question of what do you believe is controlling the UFOs? And so, I noticed you've got the I Want to Believe poster behind you, which I have one in my other room. But, and that has the picture of the UFO, and it's iconic from, X-Files and such. But that's no longer the question. We pretty much, the world has said UFOs are real. Now the question is, why are they here? What do they want? What's controlling them? I won't say who, but what's controlling them? And then exploring all of those different avenues.
Yeah, that's such a great point. And this is something that I love to discuss because, yes, you are absolutely 100% correct that the question is no longer are UFO real? We know UFOs are real. We know it. It's not something that is something that we have to ponder and consider and form our personal opinions about. That's a fact. Mm-hmm. However, we're not beyond that question. We're not beyond that point because still, to this day, despite everything that's happening with the latest flap, all the buzz that's going on with UFOs right now, to the general public, that is still the question we're stuck at.
Right.
The general public is still back at that very basic level of, are UFOs real?
Well, and I think for a lot of people, though, it's because for so long, UFO and ET has been coupled together. It's been married, really. And so we need to, I think, first break that apart societally. We need to say UFO does not equal ET. It does not equal interdimensional being or whatever the case may be. It's just something in the sky that our governments of the world have said it's not ours, therefore it is undefined.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's it. In unidentified is the very first part of it. So
right.
That's why I've always been, there is no believing in UFOs. It is something that is unidentified. That means even if it's a plane that somebody saw, right, that is essentially a UFO until they discover information on it. So.
Right, absolutely. And that is true, but there are still a lot of people, a big percentage of the general public who won't even get to that point because in their minds, there's no way there could be anything flying in our airspace
that we don't know about.
Our military and our government doesn't know exactly what it is at all times. That's the hurdle that we still haven't gotten over yet. We're still back at the very initial stage. Yeah.
We joke about it all the time. My sister's a medium. She can speak to spirits, people that have gone on. She sees ghosts. She sees all these things. But if you bring up UFO, she's like, "That's bullshit." And I'm like, "Wait, really?
Wow.
Like you think you saw Sasquatch once? You talked to Grandma, but a UFO is just a little too out there."
Isn't that interesting? Wow.
Well, and you all have even, Stefan, you and her even saw one a couple weeks back.
Oh,
right?
I know. We saw it together, and she fought me the whole time. And I gave her, I was like, "This is too high in the sky. Look where the clouds are sitting. It's going behind the clouds. Those are whatever the type of clouds that are the highest and the thinnest." I was like, "Blah blah 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 blah." And she's like, And it was in the daytime too. I was like, "This is like super rare."
Well, and it'd be interesting. Maybe you can ask her sometimes, but I wonder if her disbelief in UFO again is tied to the preposition, if you will, that UFO is tied to ET,
and more than likely, yeah.
So I mean, we have to somehow, way, shape, or form, we have to break that apart. It's interesting that you talk about the belief that our government is all knowing. Is omnipotent in some way, and must know everything that's going on, and so if we haven't heard about it, then it must not be happening or it must not be true. But I mean, those same people also lived through a lot of times when there were secrets kept about experimental aircraft that later came out. The
right,
Blackbird,
MK Ultra,
and
all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
So I mean, it's just. Again, talking about what Stefan said around what people are willing to accept and believe is so, I don't know, for lack of a better term, weird as to, where people come down on things.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's hard to break people, from what they're used to, what they've established as their reality, and that's another important thing too, and certainly something that I've adopted in my role in the UFO world, and that is helping people understand that UFOs is not a religion, right? It's, no matter what my role is in the UFO community, whether I'm a journalist or whatever I'm doing at the time, it is not my job to force people to believe or force people to think a certain way. Right. That is certainly not my job, and certainly shouldn't be anybody else's job either. It's not a religion. People can think what they want. Right. I just present people with information and let people make up their own minds, because that's what everybody has to do on this topic. It's an individual thing. People are going to think whatever they want to think. I'm not going to tell them how to think, and nobody else should either. And if somebody's telling you how to think, you should run the other way. Well,
in all actuality, I don't think there's probably a person, I won't say on the planet, because there may be other things on the planet, but a person in our government, let's say, that really knows anything more than what the general public knows about UFOs and UAPs. And I think that's what this report that we're all waiting to hear about is probably going to say, is that, we basically don't know any more than what we said we don't know. Now give us, $40 million and we'll go find out. I'm with you. I've always been, not always, but my present thought on that issue is that the U.S. government does not really know anything about UFOs. And the reason I believe that is because you can't really know anything about UFOs. Yeah. UFOs by nature are these unknown things, and they're not all grouped together. Every single UFO is different. So different. They get grouped into a phenomenon, but every UFO is different. Just because you can identify this UFO or say, hey, we learned this about UFO, this UFO over here, that doesn't mean you've solved the UFO problem. It's an unsolvable problem. Every UFO is different. So, I mean, the whole exercise right now just seems kind of silly to me, and I question motives for sure, and that's based on history. We look at what the U.S. government has done historically, not only with UFOs, but so many other things, like you mentioned, MK Ultra and all these other things. I mean, that's how the government operates. That's what they do, and that's certainly part of military and keeping secrets and things. And I think they should keep secrets. I mean, that's part of being military and maintaining a strategic advantage. But it's interesting. It really is to watch everything that's going on right now. Well, I don't see how we have the videos that came out in 2017, and then all the stuff that's been released since. It shows that technologically speaking, we are far lacking in being able to. We can barely capture images of these things as they're flying through the sky. Right. How can we possibly know anything about them? Right? I mean, we don't have any craft.
Yet at the same time, if it's a fuzzy video, they're like, why is it always fuzzy? And if it's a clear video, they're like, that's obviously special effects. So it's a lose-lose situation.
Well, that's right. And again, when it comes down to evidence and the things you weigh, you have to weigh those individually, right? Yeah. Because that's what we have to work with. We can decide if this clear video is something, kind of spectacular and worth considering, or we can rule it out and say that's obviously fake. But everybody has to make that determination for themselves. And right now, I mean, the comments, the verification or authentication coming from the Pentagon doesn't mean anything to me personally, because number one, they very carefully craft the messaging that's sent out. It's done for a purpose. And I don't know. It's very bizarre to watch how this unfolds. And, with the videos that are coming out, they're not saying anything. They're saying, we know that Navy personnel took the photo or shot the video, but that's it. That doesn't mean anything. Right. Well, it's interesting. My dad is retired Air Force, and he went in in 72 and then retired in like 2015, I think. So I asked him the other day, because he's never really been open to talking about it at all, but I tested the waters and I said, hey, Dad, when you were in, did you ever see anything that you couldn't explain? And he said, I never did, but the pilots would come back all the time talking about seeing stuff over the ocean. And so I said, well, did you all have a methodology where you report such things? He's like, oh yeah, we had a, it was in the handbook. So, I mean, that just reaffirms that, the military has never stopped looking into these things. No. They've always had an opportunity and a way for pilots to report them. They just wasn't publicly available. And look, I mean, it's packaging right now, what we're seeing and what people are expecting, because it's a no-brainer that the Air Force and the other branches of the military obviously look into UFOs. They obviously have procedures for it. That's what the military does.
Right.
Right.
If there's an
Looking at
unknown,
potential
they're on
threats,
top
right.
of it.
Right.
They're looking into it. That's what the military does. You go back to, I mean, there are handbooks that were given to cadets in the 70s, I think, late 70s, that talked about UFOs, like really long chapter about UFOs, and even talked about alien spacecraft.
Yeah.
People are getting hyped about right now about the
Right.
Pentagon saying, yes, that video shows something that we don't know what it is, aka UFOs are real. But I mean, this has been part of Air Force operating procedure forever.
Oh yeah, I mean, and this isn't the first time the government's come clean before, and then years later take it all back, and they will probably take it all back again.
Yeah, we're going to have Condon Jr. is going to do a report and say it's all fake. So
Exactly. And isn't that funny that, I mean, I've seen UC Boulder getting in on the UFO hype. They've been publishing articles lately and hyping their Condon collection that people can go and see.
Yep.
And I want to go to that collection because it sounds awesome. I had no idea how much content is actually in that collection. I didn't know they kept a Condon collection, first of all.
Same.
But they have actual like film footage of UFOs that they reviewed. They've got a ton of microfilm and just thousands and thousands of pages of documents that I would love to just go and like dive into for a month and get
Road
lost in it.
trip.
Yeah.
yeah, really. It's interesting too because all of that stuff was compiled as a part of that Condon effort, but yet they ultimately came down on, it's not real, it's not really a thing, or whatever the case may be.
Same with
And that killed Project Blue Book.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what killed Project Blue Book. And, it's funny. I mean, there's so many parallels. And when you're into the UFO field for a while, you learn that things are very cyclical. Things come around and come around again and come around again. People don't pay attention to history, but this has all happened before.
Oh, yeah.
And it's probably going to happen again. Like you said, I mean, this is the exact setup, basically, for Condon. So they'll make a determination, say, we need to launch a study into this. They'll find some university to do a study, and they'll come out with their findings and say, yeah, there's some weird stuff. We don't know what it is, but, through all of our studying, we've learned nothing scientifically. It's not worth the money to keep doing this. So, meh. Bye-bye, UFO study. Yeah.
Well, and one of the things that I've been kicking around a little bit, and I wondered, because the part for me that feels like maybe this time around is different is the Brookings report. That, it basically said you can't tell people now because they'll overreact, they won't be able to handle it. But we've had a slow trickle, if you will, of information over the last 3 years. I don't know if it's related, but I think it's interesting, the establishment of the Space Force during that time and everything else. And like people haven't
also
lost their minds.
All the generations here have all been inundated with pop culture more so than ever before. And they have grown used to sci-fi and things like that.
Oh, absolutely. No, that's a great point, because I speak a lot at like Comic-Cons and stuff. And I much prefer speaking at Comic-Cons to UFO conferences. UFO conferences are great, but I love the pop culture crowd. And they are so open to this topic, and speaking to the younger people in the audience. It's like a no-brainer for them. Like they're confused when they think, why are we even talking about this? Obviously aliens are real. Yeah. Obviously UFOs are real. Right. They just like go like even like deep down rabbit hole crazy stuff. Like to them it's just like no-brainer, that's reality, of course.
Right.
Yeah. Of course, my dad showed me Jacob's Ladder. I've seen it. So I get it.
Well, and so one of the things that I was thinking about a couple weeks back was To the Stars Academy with Tom DeLonge. Is that the information dissemination agent? Is there a series of films and things that are coming that are on their slate to be released? Is that the means in which the populace will learn about what these UFOs are?
It's certainly possible. I mean, you never know what's going on, and certainly when the military is involved and there are government agendas, you don't know. And full disclosure, I did work for To the Stars. I was hired by Tom DeLonge to help start that company. But I will say, and Tom made it clear. He said in many interviews that the reason the doors were open for him was because he went in with the message that he could help sort of reverse the public opinion of government when it comes to UFOs. And look at today, what has happened? Now all of a sudden we're everybody's waiting on the government and believing everything they're saying about UFOs. And now they're the good guys. They want to be transparent, which by the way they've never said they do. That's part of the narrative that's being created by fans. But so they are working with To the Stars. I'm excited for their video content that's in the works.
Oh, I am too.
Yeah, all their TV and film projects, it's going to be rad. But who knows? And certainly when military is involved, military does control a lot of the content and the narrative and what's put out. They do that with feature films. They have to sign off on stuff if you're going to include military and things like that. Even with the show Unidentified that was on History, to get active duty people to talk on camera, they have to be cleared. All that stuff has to be okayed to be on TV. So it is a controlled narrative. It is. I certainly don't think for a second that Tom DeLonge is a disinformation agent or anything like that intentionally. You never know what you're being used for. He is truly passionate about this subject. He is such a well-read guy. I love Tom, and I think he's done great things. And I think he gets a lot of flack because he's a rock star. Sure. And with Lou leaving and Chris leaving. Right. Yeah. But I think Tom's amazing. I think he's incredibly passionate when it comes to this subject, and I am so stoked for the video stuff to come out.
I am too. I was going to actually ask about that, about Lou and Chris leaving. Like, that seemed really odd to me and surprising. And so now I'm curious as to your thoughts on the reasoning behind that, because it almost feels like they're almost distancing themselves now from it, while at the same time still kind of playing up to it.
It's possible, but look, I mean, think about how quickly they appeared, right? One day we get this announcement, all of a sudden there are these mysterious people on stage with Tom DeLonge, or where did this guy come from? He magically just quit the Pentagon, and so they magically appeared and then they are magically gone. I think this was the roadmap for them personally. That's my thought. I think they had this goal in mind, and look what they're doing. I mean, they're more in the being activists and trying to create change within Congress, and they're doing that. So,
yeah, I mean, one of the things that I've talked about before is that the military over the last, pretty much since 9/11, the military has done a lot of contract-based projects. I mean, probably before then as well, but really it really ramped up after 9/11. To hire contracting companies to handle a lot of those projects. And so, it's possible that To the Stars is just they have the contract now with the government for dissemination of information. I mean, it's very possible that that's the case. So.
And look, I mean, To the Stars and Tom DeLonge, they're certainly great vehicles. I mean, I see the appeal. I would jump on that if I were presented with that option. So
I'm not knocking anybody. I'm a little jealous, honestly. But,
absolutely, man. Absolutely.
Yeah, well, and it almost seems like, they are two different avenues. I mean, To the Stars is very education-based. It's entertainment at the same time and things like that, where it seems like Lou and Chris are going to move towards a more, like I said, governmental kind of political type movement. While they both still could, cross some gray areas, it feels like, to me, I feel like we're going to hear something soon that Lou and Chris are attached to, that's a little more official. I think we're going to find that soon, especially knowing that at one point he was part of a government project.
Well, of course, there's all that junk that's floating around about, from the Department of Defense. Was Lou actually a part of any program?
I know, yeah.
So
and all of his emails being deleted mysteriously. Yeah. It's really weird. The whole thing is very bizarre. And they've got the Inspector General investigation or evaluation going on right now that could turn into an investigation. So I mean, there's so much of a mess going on right now. Yeah, who knows it's really odd to figure out, which is, I guess, one of the things about government. It's really odd to figure out
what the government's play here is, because on one side they're talking about this report, but then on the other side they're also, saying Lou never really worked for us and he never did anything for us, and we're going to investigate this program because it was overfunded and it didn't really do anything, and so on and so forth. But it's almost like they're covering all their bases. So no matter how this comes out,
right,
they're going to win some way. They're betting every horse, so to speak.
Yeah, it hurts my head trying to think about what their plan is here, what's going on.
For sure.
I mean, people love to feel self-important and think they forced the government's hand into commenting about UFOs and all of this. I mean, they don't need to do anything. Right? They could have just shut up, let people do their own thing, and that's fine, because who cares what a bunch of people on social media are saying? The government certainly doesn't.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they've kind of always talked about UFOs, as you mentioned earlier. I mean, they've always been in the UFO game. They've always used UFOs to their advantage. So, I mean, I don't understand why they needed to change things up, but I mean, they're still following their playbook. It's a different page, but it's still their playbook.
Mm-hmm. So I was curious. Sorry, Stefan, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I'm going to completely flip the script, so you can go on there, Josh.
Well, I was just going to ask, because we talk about it a lot of times, that there are two camps in the UFO discussion. There's the To the Stars or Lou Elizondo camp, that potentially that all these things are a threat. We need to investigate them and figure out what the threat is. And then there's the Dr. Stephen Greer side of the house, which is these beings mean us no harm and they want to help us and so on and so forth, and we all need to meditate.
Every UFO is sacred.
But and it's people tend to go one side or the other. Everybody who's really for Greer is against everything that To the Stars.
We like it both.
Yeah, so just curious where you come down on that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, of course, we could talk about the million camps there are.
Oh, I know, because I was going to bring up Mr. Alexander, who thinks
yes,
they're all just lights
there are millions,
in the sky, right?
millions of camps. But yes, with those two, it's interesting. I mean, obviously they don't really work together, because you can't have all be this way or all be that way. Right. And again, every UFO is different. But But I mean, think about what Lou's position is. Think about what their angle is. That is a military perspective. That's all they care about. They're not worried about anything else except defense. That's what they do. That is their purpose. So they're always evaluating things as potential threats. And obviously it's a no-brainer. And again, this is not something that you need to get philosophical about. Obviously, if there's something in your airspace and you can't identify it, it's a potential threat.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Just like a swimming pool in Phoenix, if you don't have a fence around it, it's a potential threat, right? I mean, it's a no-brainer. Obviously, that's what it is. They're looking at it from a military standpoint. That's all they do. That's what the UAP task force is doing. Right. They're looking at things, and again, that's why the scope of the report is so specific, so narrow, and why the purpose of the UAP task force is limited to looking at like military training ranges. Mm-hmm. They're not looking at everywhere. They're not including information from even other government entities like the FAA. You would think they would, but it has nothing to do with that. They are laser focused on military training ranges and things from a military standpoint. So looking at potential threats makes perfect sense, because that's what the military does. They don't care if you want to go off in the desert with a muscly dude and sing songs and hold hands and call in your friend E.T. with a flashlight. Military doesn't care about that. Go have fun.
Well,
and pay your thousands of dollars.
And it's the difference, too. I mean, it's like you look at the difference between an organization like ATIP versus, say, like MUFON, right? It's like a civilian organization. We want to look at even Greer. It's like, well, we want to find out what they are and what they can be and how they're doing this and what they're doing. And is there life out there? And the military's like, we need to make sure we're protected.
Yeah, I mean, they might have that individually. They might have that interest too, but that's not what the government does. Right. I mean, I could think of crazy examples. Like, I mean, if your job is to work at a car wash and somebody's asking why you're not working on and worried about world peace, that's nice. I'm not saying me as a car washer, I'm not interested in those things or concerned about them, but that's not my job. I'm here to wash cars.
Yep.
Well, and
everybody loves Hynek, but that's what he was doing too. Originally, was trying to find out if they were a threat. I mean, that's what he was doing. So.
Right.
Well, and it's also, I mean, this bill that included this report or requirement likely wouldn't have happened if there wasn't a need to investigate a threat, because the government is not going to fund, to your point, a retreat for a member of every family in America to go into the desert and sing Kumbaya and meditate.
Hands across America.
Aliens across America.
There you go. So to get back to what I was going to say, and we mentioned it once already, is the new term UAP. We hear that a lot. We have always looked at it as interchangeable as UFO and UAP, unidentified aerial phenomenon. But I wanted to give you guys a quote from Twitter because it's still one of my favorites, from Johnny L. Tenney. We love him. He says, "It's kind of odd that people who dislike using the term UFO because of all its baggage and everything, and have made it one of their goals to have everyone use the more fashionable UAP, still embrace the hashtag UFO Twitter."
Mm-hmm.
And so
great?
What do you feel about, the new term UAP? Do you feel like it's there to replace, or it represents something very different than UFO?
Well, I will share with you guys that that's certainly going to be a big element of the book I'm working on right now. But
spoiler alert.
First of all, yeah, I mean that's a misconception that UAP is new terminology. It's not. I mean, the military was using it back in the 40s, so it's been used quite a lot, quite heavily, and in the government. It was actually used by a lot of early UFO organizations. A lot of UFO organizations preferred that terminology because they wanted to be taken more seriously or whatever. Right. But, aerial phenomena was used a lot with UFO organizations. Yeah. But before that, it was used by the military, and it's been used by militaries and governments around the world. So it's not a new thing. I am firmly in camp UFO because that's my interest. Right. People like UAP because it's broad. It's all encompassing. Mm-hmm. Like if we're looking at some disturbance in the sky that's not like an object or anything solid, then that falls into the category of a phenomena.
Right. Like we said, Krista Alexander, who does lights in the sky, she very much supports UAP for that reason.
So that makes sense. But my personal interest and my focus is not on that stuff. If there is some stuff like that I find interesting, I'm going to write about or do something about and talk about, I'm going to talk about whatever it is. I'm not going to call it, UFO or try to group it into everything else. Right. But I talk about UFOs. So I say UFO. Mm-hmm. And as you pointed out, and that's something that people found out, even the UFO organizations back in the 70s, people using this term, that's the problem that you have. You see every media outlet now writing stories about the UAP task force and all the stuff that's going on, and they have to say, UAP, the new term for UFO. You have to always follow it and explain what you're talking about. Why? Why is anything worth that? Get rid of it and just say what you're talking about. It's a UFO.
Hell yes.
Well,
I'm camp UFO.
Hell yeah, we are too.
Right.
And it's I think where people were trying to go with UAP, at least in current modern day usage, was to get past the societal taboo that's associated with the term UFO.
Right.
But to your point, if you have to explain every time you write about it, UAP means UFO, then are you really getting away from anything?
Well, and it's like Alan Greenfield talked to us about back in the day when he was doing his, UFO zines and stuff, how there was this major split in the community between UFO enthusiasts and contactees, that was very taboo, as well, to talk about being a contactee and things like that. And so now here we are, 40 years later, the same thing, that now just the term UFO is the taboo.
Well, interestingly, as we mentioned before about how everything in UFOs is cyclical.
Yeah, there you go.
This same thing was met back in the 40s with, when Project Blue Book, when Project Sign and Grudge, that's an issue they faced too. When they came up with the term UFO, they wanted to use the term UFO to get away from flying saucer because of the baggage associated with flying saucer. So they went through the same thing.
That's interesting.
Not to mention, not every UFO is saucer shaped. So
that's right. But saucer is the best shape.
Yeah, some look like Tylenol gel caps, and some look like Tic Tacs.
I will on that topic. I will say, I am in Camp UFO, but I'm also in Camp cigar shaped. I will never call UFOs Tic Tac shaped or Tic Tac UFOs. Yeah. To me, they will always be cigar shaped UFOs.
Same.
and for me too. For me, it's hard to, because when you hear Tic Tac shaped UFO, for some reason my mind immediately goes to, well, it was kind of small then,
right?
But really, when you hear the description of how big it was actually really big. I mean, so the Tic Tac shaped UFO was still the size of an aircraft carrier. So, and that's something I think that gets glossed over, especially in a lot of the
reenactments.
Reenactments.
Oh, dude, they look like less than half the size of the jet.
Yeah.
Here it comes, guys.
Well, and that's why everybody's like, "Oh, it's just a drone," because it's the size of a flying house cat. So,
Well, I mean, the government and media and all that stuff, they are incredible in using certain words to purposefully dissuade you. You know what I mean? So it's like, because it's like, here's this Tic Tac. Oh, that's neat. So there is a UFO, but if they were to constantly talk about how large it was, that creates the fear, right? And they're trying to stay away from panic.
Yeah.
The Monstro UFO.
The Monstro. Oh, God, yes.
Well, it's a jujube UFO.
It's a jujube. You mentioned it, and so we have to ask about, of course, the Phoenix Lights, because, how can you not? And
Phoenix Lights was awesome, man.
Yeah, and so did you get a chance to see that? Do you remember that? Is that a thing?
Yeah, so, I mean, this is so long ago. And
right.
Again, we talk about memory and witness testimony and all of this stuff. And I love people who talk about sightings that happened, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, and they, know every single detail, every second of, the day, what they were doing. And give me a break. I don't even remember what I had for dinner last night.
Yeah.
But for what I can recall, I mean, I think I was 17 at the time, and I was outside, and I saw a series of lights just kind of hovering stationary right over my head, basically. Probably, hard to say, but probably 15,000 feet. I don't remember, but kind of high, but extremely bright, not pulsing at all, not changing in color or brightness or anything. They just remained the same color, same shape, same position in the sky. And I knew it was out of the ordinary. And again, I don't remember exactly how many. There were probably somewhere between 5 and 7 lights, but they were just there. And I stood and just stared at these things for a long time. I even managed to grab a camcorder and record for a while. So I had footage at one time. I no longer have that footage because I was a 17-year-old kid. It was not my camera, and I had young brothers, and I'm sure my parents recorded a soccer game over the Phoenix Lights. But I watched this thing. I recorded it. I knew it was out of the ordinary. I went inside. I remember seeing it on the news, and I was like, I just saw that. Went back outside. So best I can remember, those lights were there, at least when I observed them, for approximately 40 minutes is what I saw. 40 minutes. And then another time I came out, they were just gone. So I didn't see them leave or anything. But stationary lights just hovering motionless, silent in the sky for 40 minutes.
So, and I don't know, think about retrospectively, when you saw that at 17, did you have any, directionally life-altering, thing that happened to you that changed your way of thinking that has forever, affected your life?
No, not at all. I certainly, like anything else that I encounter in life that's, a new experience, and I go, wow, I have no explanation for that. That is fascinating. That is strange. I want to know what that is, but it certainly didn't impact me in any meaningful way. but I was confident that I was seeing something that I'd never seen before. I've certainly never seen it since. I mean, I've seen lots of UFOs that I haven't been able to identify. I say about a dozen to this point. I've seen probably 12 UFOs. But that one was really strange. And, knowing what I know now, it makes it stronger in my mind that I have no idea what it was. Even with all of the experience I have in the field of UFOs, with analyzing thousands of photos and videos over the years, I'm really good at finding explanations for UFOs. But that one still to this day I can't explain. And people love to point out the military flares, but I was in a unique position to know that that's not what I saw, because where I grew up, I had a good line of sight, basically, to the Barry Goldwater test range, where they dropped flares all the time. I knew what flares looked like. I saw them all the time. And guys, flares don't stay in the sky for 40 minutes.
No. I pictured you as a 17-year-old kid, like Spock, going out there. Fascinating.
That was exactly my response.
But it was a really fascinating.
And I had my hands behind my back too. I just
exactly. It was a fascinating year that year. I mean, you remember that was also the year of Hale Bopp, and we're all around the same age. Josh and I graduated high school in '97, and so I remember this being all.
You guys are old.
Yeah,
I remember like a year older than I am. Come on.
Well, Josh is technically a year older than that. So, but yeah, I can remember this being on the news, and just my mind was blown. And of course, I'm thinking, God, does this have anything to do with Hale Bopp? Were they here to watch that? Was that going on? And then we're from Kentucky, so we were already inundated with goblins everywhere. We're always worried that the little goblins gonna come out of the sky and get you. And so because of the Kentucky goblins there, but what a fascinating year if you really think about it. And I would love to go back now and look back and see the flaps that appeared that year with all those circumstances. Go back and do some Keel type research and take a look.
Well, and I can't remember what books I've read so many lately, but there's a book that talks about somebody compiled all of the UFO sighting information that's been recorded, I guess, since whenever it started being recording. And they applied an AI algorithm over top of it, and they can look at it and have predicted that the next major flap will happen somewhere around the year 2030. And again, I can't remember exactly what book that was. I'm going to have to go find it.
I do recall you talking about that, though.
But yeah, so it's just, I would say that, we're seeing trickle events. Like, we haven't really had what I would denote as a flap per se, but we're seeing definitely trickle events that happen over the country all the time. And we get those MUFON reports that, there's like 4,000 sightings a month that happen in the U.S. But, we're also introducing a lot of things artificial in our own environment that are oftentimes misidentified as UFOs, such as like Starlink and things of that nature. So, I don't necessarily say that 4,000 reports a month doesn't necessarily equals 4,000 UFOs. It likely is closer to 6 UFOs out of those 4,000 that really can't be explained.
Exactly, and that's important for people to keep in mind. And that's really hard right now, trying to get people to kind of stay grounded and understand the fact of UFOs, that 90 to 95% are going to be identified.
Right.
Every video that comes out now or photo that's posted, people are eating it up and arguing with anybody and even like one that just happened in Phoenix over Arizona.
Yeah, I talked about
research
it.
balloon.
Yeah.
People were just like, hating on anybody posting the answer to that, because people don't want to have UFOs.
It happened, because they
unless
know
the answer is aliens, they don't want to hear it.
Well, where I work, they know that they now know that I host this podcast, and so of course everybody, did you see that the other day? Blah. It was, and I'm like, listen, guys, I hate to break it to you. Listen, I'm all about it, but this one time, I swear it was legit a weather balloon. And they're like, yeah, whatever.
Isn't that great, though? I mean, I love that when it's known at work that you're the UFO guy.
Oh, yeah. I'm the UFO and ghost guy.
People come into you. I mean, I remember I used to work at Arizona State University for a while, and it was hilarious because I would see people creeping around the corner of my office door. And, you know, they some of them were like faculty, you know, college professors, some were just was staff. I would see them kind of sneaking around the corner of my door and doing this light knock. You know, do you have a second? So UFOs, you know, yeah.
The same thing, because
you know,
I had shared 2 or 3 weeks ago about a ghost that I had seen at work. I'm very open about that as well. And that spread like wildfire around. So everyone's been sharing their ghost stories with me at the work, you know, and things like that, which has been hilarious. But the thing that, since it's really the last month or so when people have really started to know that I do this with UFOs and ghosts and stuff, I'll see someone start to message me on our messenger where it's just the ... and it never goes anywhere. And then it just stops. And I'll do the same thing. I'll go, UFOs or ghosts. And they'll go,
that's
amazing. I think I saw a ghost.
I love that. That's awesome.
I love it. Man, I absolutely love it.
We need to hang out. I want to hear some stories.
For sure. Yeah, I have I've seen so many. I've already seen a handful of UAPs and UFOs since I've moved here in October. So it has been nuts.
You had that triangle thing that you saw.
Oh, yeah. Well, I reported that to MUFON. That was crazy. Yeah.
You actually reported something.
I've reported one in Kentucky that I had 2 years ago on 4th of July, which was nuts. And then one I had here. And it, like, because, you know, we're friends with Shane Hurd now. We had him on the show, and Shane was like, please get back to this person, because he wasn't the one doing the, but he was like, I wish it was me. Yeah. But it's like, I did, and this lady and I talked for 2 hours because it was triangular shape, 3 lights, and then eventually it started moving clockwise. Whoa. As it moved across the sky, and then it got to a certain point, and then it shrunk into one light and went phew. It was so like crazy. Right in between Christmas and New Year's. It was in Scottsdale. I was living in Scottsdale at the time, and so it was crazy, man.
So crazy.
So yeah, I would. We can definitely get coffee and chat, because I'm all about it. All the stuffs.
Well, yeah, and then next year I'm moving.
Yeah, I convinced Josh to move out here, so he's coming out too.
You didn't convince me. Come on.
I did. He stayed in my guest bedroom and was like, "This is nice."
Nice. Good job.
So, but yeah, I'm
absolutely
looking forward to lots of spooky. So,
well, and then all the stuff we're wanting to research now is within this region now. It's like, I feel like we have busted as much. It's like, let the hell your guys have Kentucky now. Let's take over Arizona. Because, you know, we God, in the 2 years we've done this show, because we used to focus very heavily on Kentucky while we were there, because we had a radio show as well. And so we kept a lot of it local. But now it's like, I keep having all this stuff. I'm like, Josh, there's so much stuff out here, man. Like, I can go everybody has a story out here.
Yeah.
Everybody. It's fantastic.
Yeah,
not
awesome.
Even the Phoenix Lights. Like, just other stories. Just mind-blowing.
It's crazy.
Well, and some of the stuff that I've been reading lately, you know, talks about some of the stuff that's happening around what's it called? Camelback Mountain, and the supposedly the tunnels and things that are in Camelback Mountain that were left there by the Spanish, and there's treasure or something buried in there. I'm not going to go.
Right, and then I just discovered Gila Bend on my way to San Francisco. I was like, is that a space age cafe? What is that UFO?
I have never stopped at the Space Age Cafe, but that place looks so rad, and I've always wanted to stop.
And let me tell you, them pork chops are out of this world. I'm just gonna give you that right now. It's these Native American ladies, and they make the best food. And but yeah, it's really cool. They got all these like paintings up and all this stuff. And then of course the hotel next door, of course, is also UFO themed. And it's just, I mean, I'm just driving. I've never even heard of it, because I'm always like, yes, Sedona is the one that's got all the UFO sightings. And I'm like, what is this? I do some research. I'm like, oh no, it's Gila Bend. Josh, when you come here, we have to go to Gila Bend. So
there's not much there, but Space Age Cafe is cool.
And then I'm like, it's the same thing when I was driving through the area where Travis Walton, you know, was abducted. On my way here, I was like, yeah, I get it. I can see why it would happen here. And it was the same thing in Gila Bend. I'm like, I get it. I get why there's so many sightings. You can't not see. Like, it's just there, man.
Yeah. So good place to be. Good place to be.
It was nice. Everybody we talked to there was really, really cool, man. Very cool people. I highly recommend it. You need to check it out. Go.
All right.
Like I said, the food is good. Get them pork chops. They make this beer barbecue sauce.
Whoa.
Ooh, child.
Hey,
is good.
I like that.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah.
So I want to be respectful of your time, and I know we're going to kind of go along.
Sorry, you got me talking about food now.
Well, yeah, it's dinner time out there, right? So, but yeah. So anything, I guess for anybody that wants to know about your book that you've written, the book that's coming, anything else that you've got going on, any projects, where can they find information about you?
So pretty much everything I do, I try to post at rogueplanet.tv. That is my website, and I'm very active on social media, primarily Twitter. So I'm at Acentric. That's ACECENTRIC. Got some projects coming up, some that I can't talk about. Some I'll be announcing very soon, including a new television show that's coming out. So yeah, staying busy.
That's
awesome. UFOs is no longer my full-time job, but I can't quit UFOs.
I can't quit you, UFO. I do gotta say, one of my favorite things about you, because you seem to have the same sense of humor as we do, but I love your book titles. For example, Only Weirdos See UFOs and Smirk, Giggle, and Cue the X-Files theme song. I'm like, this man gets it. This man gets it.
I'm trying to do something different with my next book, because... And not that I really care. I mean, I try not to cater to people, but I can't tell you how many more books I would have sold had I had a different title.
Sure,
because if you have that book set up at a UFO conference, you get a lot of lectures from people.
Yeah,
they come up and they see it from across the room. Your eyes connect. They look back at the book. They slowly saunter over. What's this? And I get yelled at because they think I don't think UFOs are real.
Oh,
and they think I'm making fun of them and calling them a weirdo because they obviously have seen UFOs. Oh no, it's ironic. No, read the subtitle.
That's why I love it.
The subtitle is the most important part.
Yeah,
that's like us. I mean, we've caught hell a few times for calling our show FearScape because they're like, we shouldn't be afraid of them, and I'm like, no, we're just saying.
Thank you, Stephen Greer.
These are things that we talk about, things that are traditionally spooky and different and weird, like we have to explain it to you sometimes. So I feel you on that, but I appreciate it, Jason.
Well, I'm glad.
I love it.
That makes it all worthwhile.
Well, and there's nothing wrong with being a weirdo.
Yes,
that's right. No, weirdo is a good thing. I embrace it,
Amen.
And weirdos are my people. They really are.
Yes.
Well, like
Amen. We need a million weirdo march on DC. Let's do it.
There's that
beautiful march.
There's a bumper sticker here locally that says "Keep Louisville Weird" because it's for weird people. So just keep everybody weird. Everybody needs to be weird.
Weird is a good thing.
Weird is just a societal state of mind. That's all I'm saying. But Jason, thank you so much, man, for being on the show. We will absolutely keep in touch. You and I get together and things like that. We would love to have you on the show again sometime, or some of the other projects we do, because I very much enjoy your perspective. So,
well, thank you. I would very much love that. And I think there's some trouble we could get into together.
Oh,
I like
hell yeah! And I'm telling you, Shane's kind of a weirdo too. So
Shane's my boy. I mean, he does Rogue Planet with me. We do some podcasts together. Yeah, no, Shane is rad.
We did a UFO when Josh came to visit. The three of us went out looking for UFOs on a cloudy night, and it was fantastic. So
that's awesome.
Great people here. Thank you again, Jason. We will be sending everybody your way that we can, because we love it, man.
Thank you both. This was so awesome. I appreciate it.
All right, you take care. Thank you so much, Jason McClellan.
Yeah.
Oh my God, guys, if you did not have a fun time, maybe you need to listen to another show. I don't know what's going on, because we had a blast.
Yeah,
Jason, thank you so much.
Interview.
And I know I said it, but you are always welcome on the show. Make sure to go to Amazon or rogueplanet.tv. Check out all the stuff that he's on. Get his books. They are fantastic books. This man is just a wealth of knowledge. YouTube his ass, try to find out what shows he's been on so that you can go find him there, because he's a blast, dude. I absolutely love it, man.
And really just, all around wealth of knowledge on the topic.
Oh, so highly intelligent, man. That's the thing. I cannot wait to just pick his brain, kind of, off record, just to go. I think that'll be a lot of fun. So, but yeah, wanted to get out of here, Josh. Of course, we need to get to our listener story. But before I even get into that, we had talked with, Jason, we talked about how, we're discovering a lot of things that are out this region, out this area.
Yep.
And some of that is due to the things that have been happening with Wristwatch, with the man claiming to be Terry Wrist, which we have received a number of emails from and things like that. We're actually to a point now where we have an email where we're able to respond back and forth. No longer is it a temporary email. And we've gotten some verification from Alan Greenfield and Olaf Phillips that this very well could be Terry Wrist. There's some things that Greenfield had talked about that only Greenfield knew that Terry referenced, which is pretty awesome. I mean, until the man sits in my living room and I have coffee with him and Alan's there and Alan says, yes, that's him, I think he'll always be the man claiming to be Terry Wrist, but I think we're closer to finding an answer than ever before.
Well, and regardless if he is the same Terry or not, he is giving us quite a few clues that are really leading to some pretty spectacular journeys that are coming up for us.
Right. And not only, we've talked about it before that there has been many little rabbit holes and things like this that he sent us down different areas to look at coordinates and which, by the way, Jason McClellan mentioned UC Boulder.
I was going to say something.
And, for those of you that are a part of Wristwatch, I'm not sure how much we've shared about Boulder yet, but Boulder is a place that Terry has referenced for us a number of times, as well as some other places. And then Jason McClellan talking about the Condon files being at UC Boulder. I'm like, uh-oh.
Yep.
So that's fascinating. But yeah, what an amazing thing, places to go and things to do. Obviously, we don't have time to do a full podcast on it, so we've created our Patreon as a way to help support us. We're slowly developing a pilot that some of this may be a part of, some of it may not. It just depends. But all this money helps, generate revenue for us, for our network, for this pilot, things like that. So we very much love our patrons, our blanket huggers there. Do know we're going to be revamping Patreon soon. So there's going to be some more tiers. Maybe you're not interested in Terry Wrist. That's fine. There will be other tiers and things like that to be a part as a way to support us and some really great things that we'll be doing for you. Q&As and all kinds of stuff. But you can go to fearscapepodcast.com/support or patreon.com/FearScapePod. Those are ways to join and become a monthly patron to support us. And we love those of you that already have. And we'll try to share some more tidbits here to, some thirst quenchers, so to speak. But like we said, we don't have, I wish we had time to dedicate to a full another podcast, but I already do another podcast, Misters of the Dark, and you have 2 kids. So, and trying to do this pilot and Astral Stew, and Lord, we busy.
Got a lot on the plate.
So please join Wristwatch. There's some really cool stuff coming out. We're going to be posting some audio or video of some of the conversations that we've had about everything with Olaf, talking about Greenfield and things like that. So, and we'll be having Alan Greenfield. Will be a Patreon exclusive interview as well coming soon, so you won't want to miss that. Anyways, I do want to get to our listener story, which you can send your own paranormal experiences to fearscapepodcast@gmail.com or on our website or our social media. But I have been receiving a number of, mostly because I pilfer certain Facebook groups and ask folks for stories sometimes. But we did get another one about abductions and things like that, different, more kind of UFO related, which works perfect again since we had Jason McClellan. So this one I really liked, comes from, and there's a small reference to one of our Mandela effects in here, comes from a listener named Pamela from Indiana.
Here's a true story that maybe some of you can identify with. In 1969, I was 16 years old. My mother, myself, a neighbor lady, and my brother, we were sitting on our front porch on a hot summer night, watching unusual lights in the sky in the direction of the airport. These were not lightning bugs. My mother jumps up suddenly and says, "Let's go!" And all of us, including the neighbor, pile into my neighbor's car and head for the lights. We get to a high fence bordering the airport and stop. My mom says, "Oh, it's just the landing lights." And so we head home. When we get home, my father asks where we had been. He says it's been over 2 hours, but the airport is only 5 minutes away by car. So we were all just a bit confused. Well, we all went ahead and went to bed and just kind of let it go. We didn't even wonder what the fuck, right? We just let it go. Well, that night, I have a dream about being beamed up into a circular craft with my brother. I have this dream several more times during that week. Many years later, I learned that there was a major UFO flap in our area in 1969.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Thank you,
And-
Pamela.
Yeah. Time loss. I mean,
That's a big one.
it's a big one. Yeah.
I mean, we hear about that all the time. I mean, hell, I think you and I have even had some experiences with time loss. It's a really big one. I mean, yeah. So, I mean, they went there 5 minutes. They said, "Oh, it's just the landing lights," which to me, I'm like, if you're seeing them in the sky, how are you seeing the landing lights on the ground?
Maybe
But whatever.
Maybe you're in a valley. I don't know. I mean,
No, right. Or it's a parent going, "Oh, my kids are scared." right. And then 5 minutes back because they realized that's all that it was. Let's even add 5 minutes hanging around. That's still 15 minutes, not 2 hours, to the point
Right.
where the dad is like, "Where the hell have you guys been?" So that's spooky, man. And Indiana has some pretty remarkable stories as well. I mean, I believe we were talking to the theologian that was talking about the UFO flap that happened in Kokomo, Indiana. Let's see when it talks about when it happened in the mid 90s. So, I mean, there in the mid 90s was this huge UFO flap. 41 reports just in Kokomo, Indiana alone from 1996 to 2017. That's a lot.
And then you got your strange sky light phenomenon as you were driving, or that was Ohio, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was in Ohio.
Okay,
That was in Ohio. I mean, not far from Indiana, though. Hell,
Yeah,
because
border state.
it was near Dayton, which is pretty close to the border.
Yeah.
I mean, it could have been in Indiana. I don't know. But still, very, very remarkable. Thank you so much for sharing that story. And yeah, it makes you wonder if she did get taken up, if this is a legit, thing that happened. What else happened? Did she lose that memory? It almost makes me wish I could say, "Do you want to go get some hypnosis?" I'd love to dig into, I'd love to dig into this.
Let's go do a regression.
Come on, it'll be fun.
We'll buy you a beer.
Oh, well, yeah. All right. But yeah, so again, please send your stories to us. We absolutely love them. We jest on things, but we always believe. I mean, we are here to believe you. And so just like the Ghostbusters, we want to believe you. And again, send those to fearscapepodcast@gmail.com. That's the easiest way, or the 100 other ways that we have. So, but Josh, we're going to get out of here. Just a quick reminder. Hey, like, share, review, all that stuff. Help us out in any way that you can. Get a t-shirt or a mug. We got some new stuff on there, some new Misters of the Dark stuff I really like. All this stuff helps the whole network. So, and check out all the other shows on our network, fearscapemedia.com. And Astral Stew is on YouTube right now this month talking about demons, so it's a good time. Josh, anything else that you want to share with all your personal fans, the ones that don't like me but like you?
No, just a reminder, like Stefan said, review. And if you happen to be listening to this on YouTube, go ahead and click like, add a comment, subscribe if you haven't already. It helps us out. So
perfect. All right, well, we're going to get out of here. Thank you again. This has been FearScape Paranormal Podcast here on the FearScape Media Network. This has been Stefan. Keep your eyes on the skies.
This has been Josh. The truth is now.
And remember, folks, hold those blankets extra tight, because things tend to get spooky when you're listening to FearScape. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
We hope you have enjoyed this guidepost on the road of high strangeness with us. And we thank you, as always, for listening and joining our caravan to the weird and unknown. Please consider supporting us as we continue our journey to find the answers we all seek. FearScapePodcast.com/support.